I'm just going to go over this self-awareness activity.
Solo quiero repasar esta actividad de autoconocimiento.
Have you ever been able to laugh at yourself?
¿Has sido incapaz en algún momento de reírte de ti mismo?
I laugh at myself all the
Yo me
time.
río de mí todo el tiempo.
Because really,
Porque de verdad,
I laugh at humanity all the
me
time.
río de la humanidad todo el tiempo.
Because we're all
Porque
crazy.
estamos totalmente locos.
But really crazy.
De verdad, locos.
And the interesting thing
Y la
is,
cosa más interesante
the more artificial
es que
intelligence
más inteligencia artificial
that we create,
creamos,
the more robotic
más robóticos
become the humans.
nos tornamos.
I experience this a lot.
Yo experimento esto mucho.
I really understand how you feel,
Entiendo cómo te sientes.
but there's nothing that I can do about it.
No hay nada que pueda hacer yo al respecto.
It's the
Es el
system.
sistema.
I can understand
Yo puedo entender
why you might find this annoying,
que tal vez encuentras esta situación molesta.
and I sympathize with you,
Yo realmente entro en sintonía con
but the plane plummeting to the ground,
pero el avión se cayó de volar.
and really,
Y de verdad
we have nothing to do with it.
no tenemos nada que ver con
We are on automatic pilot.
estábamos en piloto automático.
And I'm seeing this more and more.
Viendo esto más y más.
And what does that mean?
Significa,
Firstly,
primero,
people are not taking responsibility
tomar responsabilidad
for anything.
por nada,
Client service,
por el servicio al cliente.
whatever's happening, it's not my responsibility,
Responsabilidad.
it's someone else's responsibility.
Responsabilidad de alguien más.
If you ring Delta,
Si llamas a Delta,
it's the responsibility of Aeromexico.
responsabilidad de alguien.
If you ring Aeromexico, it's the responsibility of Delta. Everything is someone else's responsibility. Now, I'm not complaining
No es que me quejo
about the service
con el servicio,
much, but what I see
pero lo que sí
that there are exceptions.
es que hay excepciones.
And there's exceptional
Y
people
hay personas excepcionales
that do everything in their power
hacen todo lo que puedan hacer
to give.
para dar.
They do everything they can in their power
Pueden
to give.
para dar.
Why? Because these people care.
Las personas que les importan.
They care profoundly about your experience
Sobre tu experiencia.
because they are givers.
Que son dadores.
It's very safe
Es muy seguro
to say it's not my responsibility.
responsabilidad.
It has nothing to do with
No
me.
tiene nada que ver conmigo.
So, one of the first ways to be responsible
Primeras maneras de ser responsable
is to be happy
es el estar feliz.
and to see your own insanity
Su propia locura.
and to see everyone else's.
Poder verla de todo.
And have the capacity
Teniendo la capacidad
to laugh at yourself.
de sí mismo.
Because once you start to do that,
Empiezas a hacer eso.
what happens?
¿Qué es lo que sucede?
You start to let go,
Empiezas a soltar.
you start to flow. Sure, you get annoyed, but then you let go, and it keeps moving like that.
Sigue moviéndose.
Because you're loving yourself
Tú te estás amando.
and you're choosing
Estás eligiendo
for something greater.
algo más grande.
And it's a very important part
Es una parte sumamente importante
of being
del
human.
ser humano.
Because we're not robots
No somos
and we are not the system.
no somos el sistema.
We are unique, beautiful individuals
Individuos hermosos y únicos.
that can make a choice in each moment.
Hacer una elección en cada momento.
And when you're a person anchored in consciousness,
Una persona anclada en conciencia,
your first thought,
tu primer pensamiento,
or not even a thought,
primera pensa-
your first action
primera acción
is to serve,
es el servir.
to give. Why? Because you feel abundant.
Porque te sientes abundante.
Are you able to be vulnerable?
Estás pudiendo ser vulnerable.
Show yourself as you are
Muéstrate a ti mismo como eres.
without feeling superior
Sin sentirte ni superior
or inferior
ni inferior
to anyone else.
respecto a nadie más.
This is another aspect of vulnerability,
Es otro aspecto de la vulnerabilidad.
the capacity to display your humanity
De mostrar tu humanidad
without judgment, the capacity to look silly
de repente,
but also the capacity to have empathy, compassion, vulnerability, sensitivity, all of the human emotions without masking, without looking for what's appropriate, just to speak your truth, but from a place of love. And that's absolute empowerment. Because why? Because the masks have gone. If you can just be you, you're without a mask. If you have to run everything through the computer, through the system, in your head, you never have that freedom. And really, it's very special. Because what happens? If you're spontaneous, if you're emotional, you give everyone else a license to be the same. And then we all start to connect. Have you learned to love yourself without comparing and accepting your uniqueness and greatness? This is the objective, no? Because once you really love yourself, you celebrate everyone else. Within the illusionary experience of duality, there's always someone taller, shorter, smarter, prettier, whatever. You know, look at Barbie. Come, stand up, Barbie. Now, Barbie walked on the plane yesterday, and every man dropped his suitcase. They were like, and I said in my head, she's my Barbie. I didn't think, wow, I wish I had that body. I wish she wasn't on the plane so I'd be more important. And when you can see and appreciate, you experience an empowerment and allows everyone else to be empowered. Once you can love yourself unconditionally, you see that perfection in everyone. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when you start comparing, sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. I'm sure I didn't. But you know, it's like that. It's like you can really enjoy everyone and laugh at them and yourself. Have you ever refused to relate to someone as a partner, friend, employee, because of racial, economic, homophobic, or any other prejudices? You know, the prejudice is ingrained in our mind. The thought comes. Doesn't matter how evolved we are, there is that automatic awareness of how someone is. I mean, I do it like this. You know, rich, poor, gay, straight, complicated, sad, depressed, whatever. I see it all. But there's something. I observe it all, but I don't judge it. I don't think the billionaire is more important than the guy that's pushing my suitcases. In fact, the guy pushing my suitcases is much more important and because it helps me. You understand what I'm saying? And really, you have to get to that point where you're appreciating and loving each individual, not looking for approval, not comparing, but from a place of judgment. Because all that judgment is within you. You are that.
Tú eres eso.
If you're competing
Si estás compitiendo
or
o
judging
estás juzgando
or
o
rejecting,
estás rechazando,
it's a part of yourself.
eso es una parte tuya.
It's not external.
No está en lo externo.
It's not external.
No es externo.
And the capacity to
La
embrace
capacidad de poder
everything
abrazar absolutamente todo
gives you such a
te
freedom.
da una libertad tan
Because that means that you are
grande.
enjoying
Estás disfrutando
the variance,
la variedad,
the
la
duality.
dualidad.
It's not that you look at one tree
Tú estás mirando un solo árbol
and discard all the
y
rest.
descartas al resto.
You can see all the
Puedes
trees.
ver a todos los árboles,
You can see everything.
puedes ver todo
And you embrace it.
y lo abrazas.
You don't compare it.
No lo comparas.
You don't go, wow, look at that tree.
Wow, mira ese árbol.
Every other tree is
Todos
unimportant.
los otros árboles no son importantes.
And it has to be like that with humans.
Tiene que ser eso igual con los humanos.
Because this is what is creating the landscape
Esto es lo que crea el paisaje
of
de
our human
la
experience.
experiencia humana.
That extreme duality,
Esa dualidad extrema,
but within the unity.
pero dentro de la unidad.
Because make no mistake,
Porque no se vayan a equivocar.
it's all the same.
Todo es lo mismo.
All the same.
Todo es lo
There's nothing that's not
mismo. No
you.
hay nada que no seas tú.
So if you judge,
Así que si tú juzgas,
you're judging yourself.
estás juzgando a ti.
If you judge anything,
Si tú juzgas cualquier cosa,
you're judging yourself.
estás juzgando a ti.
You have to get to the point
Tienes que llegar al punto
where you can perceive and observe,
de percibir y poder observar
but without judgment.
sin juicio.
Have you ever felt
¿Has sentido alguna vez
envious of someone
envidia por alguien?
because you perceive him or she as
Porque
prettier,
lo percibas a él o a ella como más bonito,
wealthier,
más rico,
smarter,
más inteligente,
or for whatever
o
reason?
la razón que sea?
That was the first question.
Esa fue la primera pregunta que
So I've gone backwards
Así que fui en reversa
so you can see.
para que puedan ver.
Because that person doesn't
Porque
exist.
esa persona no existe.
And if you judge,
Si ustedes juzgan,
you saying,
están diciendo
that can't inspire me.
que eso no me puede inspirar.
I cannot become more.
No puedo ser más.
I want to pull that down.
Quiero tirar eso hacia abajo.
And that's the greatest thing you can do against yourself.
Y eso es lo más grandioso que puedes hacer en contra tuya.
If you don't admire
Tú no admiras
people
a
that
las
succeed,
personas que tienen éxito,
people who have
a las
consciousness,
personas que tienen conciencia,
people who have anything that you want,
a las personas que tienen lo que sea que tú
if
quieras.
you're jealous,
Si tú eres celoso,
you are automatically crippled
automáticamente ya estás paralizado.
because you can only pull that
Solo
down.
puedes tirar eso hacia abajo.
Okay, so all of these
Todas
things
estas
are
cosas
byproducts of
son
consciousness.
resultado de la conciencia.
And everything
Y todo,
is the whole.
todo es la totalidad.
And the
Y
totality
la totalidad
is only magnificent
es solo magnífica
within the duality.
dentro de la dualidad.
You can't segment,
No la puedes compartimentar,
you cannot move.
no la puedes mover.
It has to become one global
Tiene que ser una
experience.
experiencia global.
Yo siempre
I always
me sentí
felt,
que yo era mi humanidad.
I felt that I was
Sentimientos,
my
emociones,
humanity,
mis
my
deseos.
feelings, my emotions, my desires.
Y aquí estoy
And here I'm discovering
que realmente lo que soy es
that really what I am
la conciencia o el amor consciente,
is love
que
consciousness.
todos somos lo mismo.
And we are all the same.
Entonces me pregunto
So I wonder,
qué es la humanidad o para
what
qué
is
es la humanidad.
humanity or for what is?
This is a game.
Esto es un juego.
Your character's in a play,
Tu personaje está en una obra
and you're having a human
y estás
experience.
teniendo tu experiencia humana.
And it's the most beautiful thing you can
Y es la cosa
experience.
más hermosa que puedes estar experimentando.
But your essence,
Pero tu esencia,
your
tu
consciousness,
conciencia,
that extreme love
ese amor extremo,
is permanent.
es permanente.
It's who you are.
Es quien eres.
And once you see that,
Una vez que lo veas,
you can be your human
puede
experience
ser tu experiencia humana
in its completion,
absoluta, completa.
without judgment, without fear, without fear of death,
Sin miedo a la muerte,
without fear of birth.
sin miedo al nacimiento,
without fear of anything, just the present moment. But you have to find that in order to be completely human. And in order to be completely human, you can become divine. This experience is phenomenal. And yes, in the beginning we suffer it. And that's the beauty too. Because when the suffering leaves, what happens? That's when we really start to enjoy. When we love ourselves, that's when we really start to enjoy. It's like if you've hurt yourself, and then the pain goes, and everything's great, you see the duality? But without the duality, there's no experience. And you know, it's an interesting thing, because in ICO, in the end, they destroy Atlantis. And everyone thinks that Atlantis was destroyed for some evil force, no? But it wasn't. It got to such a point of unity that time and space stopped existing. So the human experience was so divine, it was no longer based in duality. And they decided to destroy it, to go back to the duality. And within the book, it explains all of that. Within the trilogy, it explains all of that. It's a fable that I made up. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. Who knows? It just came to me. But this is how we have to perceive. Instead of everything being so life and death, it's just evolution. It's just evolution. And the more you involve, the more love you experience. And the more love you experience, the more joy you experience. And then you can perceive the magic. Because this is magical. Without judgment, there's only magic.
Many times I hear the concept of surrender everything to consciousness, especially when I'm very tired doing something. Give that to consciousness.
It's not a concept. You know, humans get into their heads. Humans go to war. Humans destroy because of concepts. Be they religious, be they lines in an illusionary map. We kill each other because we have concepts and ideas about what's ours, what we need, what we can't live without, and it's all illusionary. When we give everything to consciousness, it resolves itself. Why? Because we let go of the friction of the mind, the fight, the duality. We let go, we drop into our hearts, and everything changes because we have a different perception. And you know, humans have stress, and they attach to an idea because we're all a bit mental, like a bit mental. And we attach to something, and it becomes the Holy Grail. And it's empty. It's completely empty. But because we need somewhere to project our angst, our fear, whatever, we make it about everything. So when you surrender it to consciousness and let go, you start to perceive reality. You know, children go to school
Los niños van al colegio
and we talk about bullying.
y hablamos del bullying.
What is
¿Y
bullying?
qué es el bullying?
It comes from a child
Viene del niño
that's suffering
que está
violence,
sufriendo violencia,
that's suffering
que
bullying,
está sufriendo
that doesn't have the capacity
tiene la capacidad
to move its own
de mover
emotions,
sus propias emociones,
to express how it's
expresar
feeling,
cómo se está
or the
sintiendo,
situation that's
o expresar
transpiring.
la situación que está
And
sucediendo.
instead of doing that,
Y en vez de hacerlo,
they go to school
van al colegio
and they find someone
y
weaker
encuentran a alguien más débil
or weird
o más raro
or
o
different,
diferente
and they project everything there.
y proyectan todo ahí.
And it's the same thing.
Y es la misma cosa.
Once we move
Una vez que movemos,
and we surrender to our consciousness,
a nuestra conciencia,
we stop projecting
dejamos de proyectar
because we see,
porque podemos ver
oh, it's stress.
ese estrés.
Oh, it's an idea.
Es una idea,
Oh, it's not
es
important.
importante.
This too will
Eso
pass.
también pasará.
This too will
Eso
pass.
también.
All the gurus say that,
Todos los gurúes dicen eso.
apparently.
Aparentemente.
This too will pass.
También pasará.
And it's true, because this too will pass.
Esto también pasará.
When I arrived, happened that I felt the desire of breaking the shell with my parents, like to cut the umbilical cord. And I was feeling very sure, very trusting my own thing. And when my mom arrived, it moved everything, all of that. And I connected with abandonment, with feeling lonely, and the value. I started feeling threatened by my brother here, as if he was going to steal that love. And I want to ask you how to be able to
You
fly.
just have to let it go. You know, you are responsible unto you.
Tú eres responsable de ti mismo.
That's it. You loving you, you being with you, and all these ideas you have to express to her. And you'll see
Y vas a ver
that it's not true.
que nada de eso es verdad.
She loves you all equally.
Ella los ama a todos por igual.
I'm positive
De
of
eso
that.
estoy segura.
And you need to be able to see that, but it also needs to be unimportant.
Ser algo no importante.
It can't be important
Puede ser importante.
because love is love.
El amor es amor.
And you can't equate it.
Y tampoco se puede comparar.
You can't measure it.
No se puede medir.
The only love you can measure
El amor que puedes medir
is that unlimited love
es el amor ilimitado
that you're experiencing.
que estés experimentando.
So use your mother being here
Usa esta estadía de tu madre aquí.
to heal this completely.
Sanar esto completamente.
You know, I left home when I was 15.
Yo cuando tenía 15 años me fui de casa.
And if you had asked me,
Y si me hubieras preguntado,
I never hardly ever communicated with my parents.
muy raramente yo me comunicaba con mis padres.
You know, I was very independent. I had my own life.
Mi propia-
I go home with the washing,
Me iba a casa a visitarlos y llevaba la bolsa de la lavandería.
like a month's worth of washing,
Una lavandería para hacerme un mes acumulado.
bring it to them,
Se la llevaba.
and then I go
Y
again.
después me volvía a ir.
And if you ask me
Si me hubieras preguntado
if I was attached to my parents or whatever,
o lo que fuera,
I would have told you no.
hubiera dicho que no.
I've left home at 15.
Me he ido de casa,
I've lived all over Australia.
había vivido por toda
I make my own money.
Yo creaba mi propio dinero.
I'm successful.
Era exitosa.
Blah, 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 blah. When they all died,
Cuando se murieron,
and you know they all died
y saben que se murieron todos
all at the same time,
casi al mismo tiempo.
I
Me
realized
di cuenta
that I had never taken
que yo jamás
responsibility
había tomado responsabilidad.
because they were always there.
Ellos siempre estaban ahí.
And I took that for granted.
Daba por sentado.
And when they were gone,
Y cuando ya no
I've never felt more fragile,
me sentí más frágil,
even though I didn't depend on them.
aunque no dependiera de ellos,
But also,
pero también
I could see
podía ver
that they were inside of me.
que estaban dentro mío.
All those judgments
Todos esos juicios,
and ideas
todas esas
or belief systems, they weren't mine. It was my projection. None of it was true. And you have to see that. How do you see that? By taking responsibility for yourself. Once you take responsibility for yourself, you love your parents unconditionally. And you don't need their approval because it's automatic. Your parents approve. The minute you love yourself, your parents approve. So work on you. Focus on you. And the judgments, in.
The other day you told that when we have a lot of fear, there are a lot of thoughts, too many, and the fear don't create so fast, comparing with love, that love creates very fast. I'm experiencing, for example, now, after the witnessing, is very present in the conversation, and it was coming a word, and the other person will say it before me. And I think in something, and it shows up in a person, and that person comes next to me. Can you tell me how to create more from love like this, very fast?
You know, the beauty of love is it's innocent. It's not that you can control it. It is. It is. And there's no separation. So automatically, what you perceive transpires, but you can't manipulate it. You know, if you listen to The Secret and you focus, sure, you'll create something. I used to create everything I wanted. But my big creation started when I stopped controlling. I just allowed and I trusted. And that's when the creation became beyond my imaginings. Okay? And with love, it's like that. The more you evolve, you start to trust in your own creation. So no matter what's coming, you know it's for you to evolve, to be more, to aspire, to be successful, maybe to heal, but you can't control it. You can't control it. Because the minute you start to control it, it's like anything. You dilute the power. Freedom. Freedom. Freedom to create and to surrender to the creation in each moment. Don't try to control it. Allow the magic to unfold.
Can you tell me more about the importance of the middle point and the difference in between being in the middle point in equilibrium or being mediocre?
You know, the middle point is perfect balance. And it's the optimum because it's unity. The Buddha got to the middle point. Jesus got to the middle point. Everything of consciousness and power and the capacity to create is always in the middle point because it's perfectly balanced between the masculine and the feminine, and it sits in the heart. Anything of value comes from that place. Yes, you can be extreme. You can be the best. You can climb Mount Everest faster than anyone. But what happens when you get to the top? Nothing. Nothing. the clouds move in, and you've had a moment. You've had one moment. But you can live in a perfect moment, in the here and now, creating from that space. And that's absolute freedom. The middle point is the heart. And when you're in the heart, you can create anything. All these other ideas are so illusionary. Because I was that person. Frenetic, running, achieving, doing the impossible, and attaining. But attaining what? The same. The objective is still empty. And you have to see that. And yes, it's true. You set an expectation that's so high, often you achieve it. But what's the downside if you don't? You go in the opposite direction. Do you know how many Olympic champions went into absolute depression? Some of them killed themselves because they were so exigent, achieved, couldn't sustain again and again and again, so identified, they didn't have the capacity to be anything but that. So, you have to find the middle path. It doesn't matter if you do these things, but if you're intelligent, you get to a point where you see it's all the same. It's all the same. And it becomes unimportant.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about physical symptoms and the relationship to what's happening with love consciousness and our, as that's growing through our process.
And do you feel different now?
Yeah, I do.
You feel expanded?
Yeah, I feel more
Sure.
calm and expanded, for sure.
You know, we have blocks in our physical being, in our energetic portals, because they're full of stress. And when they start to open, often we have those sort of symptoms, including extreme pain, like sharp pain. But then when the stress leaves, it opens. Yeah, and that's what it is. What you just described to me is either a heart attack or your heart chakra opening. I assume it's the latter because you're still here.
The other day, I could see. Hurts me to be out of myself. And I thought that that emotion, it was attraction. It's so easy be out of yourself. For example, turning to see the butterfly. You can be out, disconnected, no? How to make stronger your connection always?
You know, now that you can see it and feel it, you'll stop doing it. And that's a great achievement for you. You need to appreciate that because you are the original butterfly. You're always flying around. And now you've landed. So we use the facets. We stay present. We stop looking externally for love, appreciation, and we start giving it to ourselves. And that's what you're doing. Great. Your energy's changed completely. You've matured. How old are you now?
29.
Oh, wow. Very good, very good.
These last days, I have been seeing how exigent I am with myself. with exercise, with my body, with food, with the process. And also I can see it's a place where doesn't allow myself to appreciate myself. Can you tell me something?
Sure, you know, if you're doing the process so well, with such clarity, unifying, sticking to the diet, doing physical exercise, it's just a place we have to start appreciating. The exigent mind is trained to suffer because there's always more. It's like someone that's anorexic, but really anorexic. Never thin enough. Doesn't matter what they see, it's never enough. And that blindness, that self-destruction, comes from control and exigence. That's an example. But we have that in many different areas. And it's a place of non-loving. And it's not that you need to go in the opposite direction. You need to appreciate and see clearly that this is fabulous. Look what I'm doing. I'm doing the process so well, and I should be happy with myself. Because that's an aspect of the process. Appreciation, gratitude, and it starts with you. And that's all you have to change. Appreciate. Because anything else is violence. Exigence is violence. It's contra to consciousness. It's like extreme religion. Punishing ourselves, me culpa, torturing ourselves, starving ourselves, becoming ascetics. It doesn't serve. It's against life. Life's a celebration. Life's abundant. And yet we have this idea that that exigence, that self-abandonment is divine. And it's exactly the opposite. It's against God. Completely against. And that's another aspect of extreme self-violence. So I know you're not doing that, but you need to see and appreciate yourself. And if you see it now, great. Great. That's a big part of this process. Loving myself exactly as I am. We can always polish, but in this moment you're perfect. You're perfectly human. Love and evolution.
In my personal experience, the world of business is very, very similar to the experience of a sportsman, a high resistance sportsman, always focusing the objective, always pushing beyond, always strategical, always searching for the control of a situation. My question is, how I will be able to take my experience of love consciousness to the world of business when I leave from here?
You know, the business world's changing. It's becoming more a place of giving, more holistic, less stressful. That's a very old model of business. And it's like extreme sport. It leads to the same point. You know, it's like you're trying to win the game. But you have to enjoy the game. You know, I was with one of the most successful businessmen in the world yesterday. In the world. And he plays with everything. He's having fun with everything. It's not so serious. And I'm sure when he was a young man, and there was that different dynamic, the 90s dynamic. And everyone was like that, ruthless, working 17 hours a day or more just to win the game. And it's not like that anymore. You have to change. You have to give more. You have to find sustainability. You have to be empowered and give that empowerment. Have a more feminine energy and take that into the business world. Because that's the new face of business. I meet lots of business people. And that old model, it's leaving. It's becoming something much more inclusive, much less ruthless, and more nurturing. And you can be that. Steve Jobs did that before he died. And look how much the face of his company changed. And the guy I met the day before yesterday, Tim Cook, he was just an adorable little sweetheart. Really? I suppose if you're worth that many billions, you haven't got many worries, no? Gracias.
Come visit our webpage for books, movies, and our wonderful retreat centers. Isha's simple yet powerful system is transforming lives around the world.